Vietnam's humid forests had fallen silent in 1965. Ethan Walker was a young helicopter pilot, 24 years old. He was examining the strange device in his hands, but there was a great unease within him. This night vision goggles were very different from the others. The lenses were red. These experimental goggles, sent from the Pentagon, had been issued to only a select few teams. Ethan kept asking himself the same questions. Why had this team been chosen? Why was this operation and the goggles so secret? Why these strange red goggles instead of the standard green spectrum night vision devices? "Walker!" Captain Morrison's sharp voice snapped Ethan out of his thoughts. "You'll be conducting your first test flight tonight. These goggles can detect enemy movements in the red spectrum." Ethan began examining the goggles in detail. They were much heavier than other goggles. The metal part was as cold as ice, but the lenses were oddly warm. It felt as though there was a living energy within them, emanating from the red color. Ethan asked, "Sir, why was the red spectrum chosen for these goggles?" His voice betrayed his concern. Morrison's face tensed. "I can't explain it to you. Just know that it was produced using very special technology. With these glasses, you will report everything you see to me in detail." Ethan nodded, but his doubts were growing. This level of secrecy was not normal for the military. Jackson Reed approached him. The 25-year-old co-pilot was one of Ethan's closest friends, and he showed him his own glasses, saying, "So they gave you that weird thing too?" Ethan asked, "Yes. What do you think?" Because he trusted Jackson's logical approach. Jackson said, "Technology is advancing. Maybe it will be useful. But this secrecy is very strange. I don't understand it." As the two walked toward the helicopter, Ethan looked at the glasses one last time. It was as if the red lenses were staring back at him. It was a strange feeling. It was as if these glasses were not just a tool, but something else. He looked around. However, the other pilots had not been given these goggles. Only selected teams would use them. This made him even more anxious. Jackson touched his arm. "Friend, is everything okay?" "Jackson, I don't know. I feel like tonight will be different." "What do you mean? Why do you think that?" Ethan looked at the glasses. It's like these glasses are going to take us to a different world," he said. These words made Jackson uneasy too. They were both about to board the helicopter, unaware that this night would change their lives. The helicopter's engines started up. There was a strange feeling inside. It was as if the glasses were calling him. As the helicopter's engines accelerated, Ethan's heart began to race. The familiar sound of the UH-1D Huey was there. But tonight, everything felt different. Tonight, they would test those mysterious red glasses for the first time. Jackson sat down in the pilot's seat and checked everything to take off. "Are you ready, Walker?" he asked. He tried to sound normal, but Ethan could sense his friend's tension. Ethan said, "I'm ready." But he wasn't ready at all. His anxiety was growing, because he kept asking himself the same question. Why were these goggles given only to them? The helicopter slowly rose into the air. It moved through the darkness of the night over the Vietnamese jungle. The moonlight shone on the treetops, but the interior of the forest was shrouded in deep darkness. Ethan looked through the goggles. and the red lenses reflected the cockpit lights. The metallic frame was trembling. He didn't know if it was from the helicopter's vibrations or his own excitement. Ethan said, "I'm putting them on now." Jackson put on his goggles at the same time, and the world suddenly changed. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. What he saw was quite strange and unexpected. The forest was no longer ordinary. Everything appeared to be in a different dimension in the red spectrum. The trees looked older, but more threatening. The shadows were deeper, more mysterious, and between the trees, there was movement. Ethan whispered, "Oh my God, Jackson, do you see that?" There were silhouettes the size of humans, but they weren't human. They were moving slowly and silently. It was as if they had heard the sound of the helicopter and started watching them. Jackson's breathing quickened. "What are these, Ethan? This is impossible." Below, deep in the forest, there were dozens of creatures. They were tall, slender, human-like, but not human in shape. Their movements were fluid, otherworldly. Ethan panicked. "Take off your glasses," he said. Both of them took off their glasses at the same time. The forest looked normal again. There were only trees, darkness, and silence. No creatures were visible anymore. Jackson's voice was barely audible. "What does this mean?" Ethan couldn't make sense of what was happening. However, one thing was certain. These glasses didn't just have night vision. They showed a different dimension and mysterious things. Ethan said in a determined tone, "Let's put them back on." "Are you crazy? It's very dangerous." "But we have to understand, Jackson. Are these real?" They put their glasses back on. The creatures were still there, but this time they were closer. It was as if they were coming toward the helicopter. "So, do you think these beings are real, or just an effect of the glasses? Share your thoughts in the comments." Jackson started trembling. "Ethan, they're moving. They're coming toward us." Ethan looked. The beings were indeed slowly approaching the helicopter, but they seemed curious. Ethan said, "It's like they can see us." "That's impossible. They're only visible through the glasses. They're not real." Ethan wasn't sure. These beings looked very real. They didn't take off their glasses until they returned to the camp. They continued watching the beings. With each passing minute, they believed more and more that they were real. As the helicopter landed, Ethan looked at Jackson. "Let's not tell anyone. Let's figure this out ourselves first." Jackson nodded. "You're right. But Ethan, this could be something big." The next morning, Ethan couldn't sleep and was exploring the campsite. The creatures from the red glasses kept coming to mind. Were they real, or was it some strange side effect of the glasses? They met Jackson for breakfast. Both of their faces were pale, and the skin under their eyes was haggard. They hadn't slept all night. Jackson said, "You couldn't sleep either, could you?" His hands were trembling slightly. Ethan shook his head. "I can't stop thinking about them, Jackson. Those beings, it was like they knew us, like they were waiting for us to be there. This isn't a coincidence." Caleb Mitchell approached them. The 27-year-old experienced sergeant sat down at the table with a look of deep concern on his face. His eyes betrayed a mix of exhaustion and suppressed fear. Caleb said, "You used those damn glasses too, didn't you?" His voice was trembling, and his hands were shaking slightly, uncontrollably. Ethan and Jackson looked at each other in shock. They hadn't told anyone about what they had experienced, so how did he know? Ethan asked, "How do you know, Caleb?" Caleb took a deep breath, as if gathering all his courage to speak. "Because I saw them too. Last week, when I was on a reconnaissance mission with Logan Carter, we were wearing the same glasses. And we experienced exactly the same thing." Jackson moved closer to Caleb. "What exactly did you see?" Caleb said, "There were creatures jumping out from between the trees. They were human-sized, but definitely not human. Tall, thin, mysterious. It was as if they were waiting to hunt us. They followed us constantly, and the moment we took off our glasses, they disappeared." Ethan felt sick to his stomach. So it wasn't just them. Other soldiers had experienced the same strange phenomena. This was both reassuring and deeply unsettling. Ethan asked, "Where is Logan now?" Caleb's face darkened, and a deep fear appeared in his eyes. "He had a severe nervous breakdown last night and is now in the hospital. He keeps saying he sees them. The worst part is that he continues to see them even after he takes off his glasses." This news deeply shook Ethan. Could these glasses have left a lasting effect on the mind? The thought was extremely frightening. "How are you, Caleb?" asked Jackson. Caleb, "Jackson, I'm not okay," he said. "I keep seeing them in my dreams at night. It's like they're living inside my head, like they've established a permanent connection with me. Sometimes I even see their shadows during the day." Ethan gave Jackson a meaningful look. The same terrifying thought crossed both their minds. What if they became like Logan? What if these glasses had irreversibly affected their minds? Ethan said, "We need to talk to Captain Morrison about this. This is a serious and dangerous situation. We need to report it to the authorities." Caleb shook his head in despair. "I already reported it, Ethan, but they didn't take it seriously. They said it was war stress. They said it could be post-traumatic stress disorder. They think it's hallucinations. But if you're experiencing the same thing, it can't just be stress." Miles Thompson joined them at that moment. The experienced pilot in his 30s looked deeply concerned. "Guys, I heard what you were talking about. I've been through the same thing." The three looked at Miles in shock. Ethan asked in disbelief, "You too?" "Last month, with David Chen. The same glasses, the same entities. David is now undergoing psychological treatment. He's trying to pull himself together, but..." He paused. "But what?" Jackson asked anxiously. "Even without the glasses, he still sees them. It's as if the glasses opened a door, and now that door won't close." These words deeply shook the four soldiers at the table. So it wasn't just Logan. Many soldiers were experiencing the same thing. Ethan felt a mix of emotions: fear, curiosity, determination, all at once. "We'll talk about this with Morrison together. There's something much bigger being hidden about these glasses, and we have to find out what it is." When they entered Captain Morrison's tent, there were piles of classified files and documents on his desk. Ethan, Jackson, Caleb, and Miles stood at attention, but they couldn't hide their anxiety. Ethan said, "Sir, we need to report urgently about the red glasses." His voice was firm. but he was trembling inside. Morrison looked up. His eyes showed deep fatigue and growing concern. "I'm listening, Walker. I want all the details." Ethan began recounting what had happened that night. The entities in the red spectrum, their supernatural movements, how they vanished the moment the glasses were removed. Miles and Caleb added their own experiences. Morrison began to grow angry as he listened. "Wait," he said, opening the thick file on his desk. "This isn't just happening to you." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Sir, what do you mean?" "So far, 7 different teams have reported the same thing. They all used the same glasses and saw the same entities." Morrison's voice grew increasingly serious. Jackson leaned forward. "Sir, what exactly are these glasses? Why are only we using them?" Morrison remained silent for a long time. Then he took a deep breath. "It's the Pentagon's most secret project. The project is called Red Spectrum. These glasses can theoretically capture infrared waves. But what, sir?" Miles's voice grew tense. "But scientists believe that images from different dimensions can be captured in this spectrum. They say that parallel realities, alternative dimensions, can be observed." Caleb looked stunned. "Dimensions, sir? This sounds like a science fiction movie." "It does, Sergeant. But as the number of reports increased, we began to think that this theory might be correct." Morrison took photos out of the file. These photos were taken with red spectrum cameras. There were disturbing shapes that were not clearly visible in the photos. Silhouettes that resembled humans but were not human. These photos were taken in various locations in the jungles of Vietnam. Jackson looked at the photos. "Oh my God," he whispered. "These are what we saw." Morrison nodded. "And that's where the real problem begins. These entities are no longer visible only through the goggles. Some soldiers started seeing them with their naked eyes after using the goggles." This information deeply shook all 4 of them. Logan's situation was now the same. Ethan asked, "Sir, are these entities dangerous?" Morrison pulled out more photos. This time, the images were clearer. The entities were not harming the soldiers. They were merely observing and following them. "They haven't shown any aggressive behavior yet, but..." Morrison paused. "But the mental effects are very serious. The soldiers who use the goggles are experiencing psychological distress." Miles leaned forward. "How bad is it, sir?" "They're calmer, but different. It's as if they're connecting with those entities. David Chen no longer wants to participate in the mission." This information had a profound effect on the team, so this wasn't just a hallucination. These entities were actually damaging their minds. Caleb asked anxiously, "Sir, could this affect us too?" "It's possible, Corporal. That's why we're considering halting the project due to the high risk." But Ethan had a different perspective. "Sir, what if this is an opportunity? What if these entities are truly from another dimension and trying to communicate with us?" Morrison looked at Ethan closely. "What do you mean, Walker? Maybe they're not enemies. Maybe they're trying to teach us something. Logan calming down, David becoming anti-war. Maybe they're trying to bring peace." These words made everyone in the room think. Was Ethan right? Morrison closed the file. "We'll conduct the final test tonight, under controlled conditions, with the medical team present. If it proves dangerous, We'll terminate the project." That night, there was extraordinary preparation at the base camp. Dr. Sarah Coleman and the medical team were setting up monitors and advanced equipment in the testing area. Ethan, Jackson, Caleb, and Miles would be testing the glasses in a laboratory environment this time. Dr. Coleman said, "Your heart rate, blood pressure, and brain waves will be monitored continuously. If you notice any abnormalities, remove the glasses immediately. No questions asked." Ethan nodded, but he felt a different kind of excitement inside. This time, under controlled conditions, they might be able to learn the true intentions of these beings. Perhaps they would even have the opportunity to communicate with them. The test area was lit up with red lights. Special cameras were filming from every angle. Every second of this project would be recorded. Morrison suddenly shouted, "Logan escaped from the hospital." "He escaped this morning. He's not showing up on the security cameras. It's like he vanished." This news worried all four of them. Where did Logan go? Caleb said, "Maybe those entities called him. Maybe he went to meet them." Dr. Coleman checked the monitors one last time. "Get ready. We're starting. Put on your glasses," he said. Ethan put on his glasses, and the world changed again. But this time, it was very different. The entities in the laboratory environment were much clearer, and there were many more of them. "Oh my God, they're everywhere," he whispered. Jackson's breathing quickened. "I see them too. There are so many. They seem to have taken over the entire camp." Caleb's voice trembled. "They've surrounded us, but they look different this time. Calmer, more peaceful." Miles looked around carefully. "It's like they're trying to talk to us. Their mouths are moving." Dr. Coleman looked at the monitors. "Your brain waves are working extraordinarily well, and there is a lot of activity. But there are no fear signals. On the contrary, calmness hormones are increasing." Ethan focused on one of the creatures. It was tall, thin, with a dark face, but its eyes were different. Ethan felt like he had seen those eyes before. The creature slowly approached Ethan. Ethan wasn't afraid. Instead, he was curious. Jackson said, "Ethan, be careful. It's getting too close." But Ethan remained calm. "No, Jackson. It's trying to show me something." The creature stood in front of Ethan. It reached out its hand. Ethan reached out his hand as well. Just as their fingers were about to touch, Ethan felt an electric shock. Sounds began to echo in his head. "We won't hurt you. We are here to help you." Ethan thought, "Who are you?" "We are from the future. Your future." This information shocked Ethan. The future? What does that mean? The creatures projected images into Ethan's mind. There were scenes from the Vietnam War, strange scenes of nuclear explosions and the destruction of the world. "If you don't stop, this will happen." The creature's voice was sad. "We are trying to stop it." Ethan wanted to ask more questions, but the creature began to fade away. "Wait," he thought. I want to know more. Logan came with us. He understood. You can too. At that moment, Dr. Coleman shouted, "Ethan's brainwaves are at a dangerous level. Remove the glasses immediately." But Ethan didn't want to take it off. He wanted to learn more. Were these creatures really from the future? Were they really trying to save the world? Jackson forcibly removed Ethan's glasses. The creature vanished, and Ethan looked around in confusion. Jackson was worried. "Ethan, are you okay?" he asked. Ethan looked at his hand. It looked normal, but he felt something different. It was as if the creature had really touched him. "I'm okay. But I talked to them. I really talked to them." Dr. Coleman was examining the test results. "What happened is impossible. Your brainwaves show that you were communicating with something, but science can't explain this." Morrison leaned forward. "What did they say, Ethan?" "They said they came from the future trying to stop the wars, and that Logan understood them and went with them." These words made everyone think. Could this be possible? Were beings from the future trying to change the past? Miles looked skeptical. "That's nonsense. Time travel is impossible." But Caleb thought differently. What if it's not? What if they can really see the future and are trying to warn us? Dr. Coleman was gathering the equipment. "This experiment is very dangerous. Ethan's mental state has changed. He seems calmer, different." Ethan really did feel different. It was as if he had found peace within himself, and the wars no longer made sense to him. The next morning, Ethan woke up in a different mood. He felt strangely calm. The sounds of war and explosions no longer affected him. When Jackson entered the tent, he noticed Ethan's state. "Friend, you look different. Are you okay?" "I've never felt this good before, Jackson. After talking to those beings, it's like I started seeing everything differently." Jackson grew concerned. "This is the same thing that happened to Logan. Are you turning into them too?" Ethan thought for a moment. Maybe Logan was right. Maybe they really were trying to help. Just then, a soldier ran into the tent. "Emergency! Logan has been found. We found him deep in the forest, in the old Viet Cong caves." Morrison immediately gathered his team. "We're organizing a rescue operation. We have to bring Logan back." But Ethan was unsure. "Sir, what if Logan doesn't want to come back? What if he needs to be there?" Morrison looked at him sternly. "Walker, you're being influenced. This is too dangerous." Caleb interjected. "Sir, I want to go look for Logan too. Maybe I can talk to him." Miles nodded. "I'm coming too. I want to see this through." Jackson hesitated but finally decided. "Then let's all go. We started this together. We'll finish it together." The helicopter was ready. This time, Dr. Coleman would be with them to assess Logan's condition on site. The helicopter took off toward the forest, and Ethan looked out at the landscape. Everything seemed more meaningful. The beauty of nature, the tranquility of the trees. Why was war destroying this beauty? Jackson said, "Ethan, you're really changing. Even your eyes look different." Ethan looked at himself in the mirror. There was indeed a different sparkle in his eyes. They were calmer and more meaningful. As they approached Logan's coordinates, Ethan wanted to put on his glasses. "Let's put on the glasses," he said. "We'll be able to find Logan better." Morrison objected. "No, absolutely not. It's too risky." Ethan insisted. "Sir, this is the only way we can communicate with Logan. He's not in the normal world anymore. Finally, Morrison relented. You'll only wear them for 5 minutes, and the radio connection will remain active at all times. Ethan put on the goggles. The atmosphere of the forest changed again, and this time, he saw Logan. Logan was standing at the entrance of a cave, but he wasn't alone. He was surrounded by dozens of monsters, and Logan looked happy. Ethan said, "I found Logan. He's down there, at the entrance of the large cave, and he looks okay." The helicopter landed. Ethan, Jackson, Caleb, and Miles walked toward the cave. Dr. Coleman and Morrison waited in the helicopter. As they approached the cave, Logan emerged. But this wasn't the Logan they knew. There was a deep peace in his eyes. Ethan called out, "Logan, how are you, my friend?" Logan smiled. "I've never felt better, Ethan. They taught me so much." Jackson approached warily. "Logan, are you really you?" "Of course it's me, Jackson. But now I know the truth. This war, all wars, are meaningless. They're trying to stop it." Caleb asked curiously, "Who are they, Logan? Who are these beings?" Logan pointed to the cave. "Come, I'll show you. But first, put on your glasses. You need to do this to see them." All three hesitated. Entering the cave seemed very risky, but Logan insisted. "Please, friends, they will show you the truth. They will show you what will happen in the future, how it can be stopped, and everything else." Ethan stepped forward resolutely. "I'm going, and if he's safe, we're safe." Jackson nodded. "Then let's go together." Caleb joined the others. "Yes, we must stay together until the end." Miles hesitated one last time, but couldn't leave his friends behind. "All right, but let's be very careful." Logan led the way, and the four followed him into the cave. The interior was illuminated by a red light. The walls were covered in crystals. Logan said, "This is the gateway to their world. Time and space work differently here." They took a deep breath and put on their glasses. The moment they put on their glasses, the cave completely changed. It was no longer a narrow, dark cave, but a huge crystal hall. Stars were shining on the ceiling, and the walls seemed to be breathing. Ethan held his breath. This is impossible. Dozens of beings stood silently in the hall, but this time, they didn't seem threatening. It was as if they were waiting for them. Logan led the way like a guide. "When they brought me here, I was very scared. But then I realized they weren't enemies. They were saviors." Jackson looked around in amazement. "Logan, is this real or some kind of illusion?" "Jackson, it's real. This is a completely different dimension. They can see the future from here. And what they see," Logan paused, "is terrifying." One of the beings stepped forward. It looked older and wiser than the others. His eyes were deep blue and seemed to hold an endless sadness. The old being began to speak to their minds. His voice echoed in the heads of the entire group at the same time. "Welcome, young warriors. We are here as your future selves." Caleb looked on in astonishment. "Our future selves?" "Yes, we are your future children. We have come back through the time loop." Miles couldn't believe it. "That's scientifically impossible." The being shook its head sadly. "In our world, Science is very different. Time is not linear. Past, present, future. They're all one. Ethan asked curiously, "What do you want from us?" "Stop the war. Bring peace. Or else." The entity paused. Suddenly, images began to appear on the crystals in the room. Ethan and his friends saw horrific scenes, the Vietnam War and other major wars. They saw nuclear and destructive wars. The creature said sadly, "If nothing changes, the world will be destroyed." Jackson's voice trembled as he asked, "But how can we stop this? We're only 4 soldiers. The beginning is with you. The idea of peace will spread like Logan, if you understand." Logan turned to his friends. "They're right, guys. I've been here for 3 days. The things I've seen. The world is truly in great danger." Caleb looked at him skeptically. "But Logan, you're not the same as before. They seem to have changed you." "Caleb, they didn't change me. They enlightened me. They showed me how meaningless war is." The entity spoke again. "We don't force change. We only show the truth. The choice is yours." Ethan was thinking, were these entities from the future? Were they really trying to save the world? Can they really see the future? Would you trust them if you were in their place? Share your thoughts in the comments. Miles asked anxiously, "So, what exactly do you want us to do?" Different images appeared on the crystals this time. Soldiers were laying down their weapons and signing peace treaties. People were hugging each other. Peace, message, broadcast. Tell the other soldiers, war is not the solution. Jackson was undecided. "But we're soldiers. Our duty is to fight." The entity spoke in a firm tone. "No," it said. "Your duty is to protect. And right now, you must protect the world." Logan approached his friends. "Guys, I've made my decision. I'm staying here. I'll continue spreading the message of peace from here." These words shocked the others. Ethan looked at Logan. "Logan, are you really sure you want to stay here?" "Yes, Ethan. This is my home now. But you can come too. You can bring your families. This place is safe." Caleb hesitated. "My family, my wife, my children," the entity said. "They can come too. But you must decide first." Jackson looked at Ethan. "What do you think?" Ethan thought for a long time. This decision would affect the rest of their lives. "I think we should go back," he said. "But to spread their message, to bring peace to the world." The entity looked pleased. "Wise decision. You may go. But the connection will continue." As they prepared to leave the room, the walls of the cave suddenly began to shake. The sounds of helicopters and military commands could be heard outside. Morrison had grown impatient and called for reinforcements. Jackson panicked. "What's happening?" he asked. Logan looked worried. "Morrison is coming to rescue us, but they might interpret this as an attack." There was movement among the beings. The elderly beings spoke in their minds. "Danger is coming. Your friends are coming with weapons." Ethan immediately turned on his radio. "Morrison is here. Withdraw. Do not use weapons. Walker, get out immediately! That's an order! Morrison's voice was angry. The sound of military boots was approaching outside. Caleb looked anxiously at the cave entrance. At least 20 soldiers with heavy weapons are coming this way. The crystals began to vibrate faster. The beings, filled with fear, moved closer to each other. These peaceful beings were not prepared for an attack. Logan said in pain, "They don't want to fight. But they'll have to defend themselves." Miles grabbed the radio. "Morrison, don't come in here. This is too dangerous." "Miles, have you joined them too? Get out immediately or we'll have to take you by force." The elderly being turned to the group. "You must go. We don't want to fight, but we must protect ourselves." Ethan stepped forward resolutely. "I'll talk to Morrison. He'll listen to me." Jackson grabbed his arm. "It's too risky, Ethan. He doesn't trust you anymore. But I have to try. These beings are innocent. I can't let them be harmed." Caleb nodded. "I'm coming with you. Together, we'll be more convincing." As they walked toward the cave entrance, the light from the crystals grew dimmer. The creatures were preparing to defend themselves. When they emerged, they were met by Morrison and 20 soldiers armed with guns. All barrels were pointed at them. Morrison shouted, "Drop your weapons! Hands up!" Ethan shouted, "Morrison, stop! There are innocent beings inside. Don't harm them." "Walker, you've lost your mind because of those damn glasses. There are enemy forces inside." Jackson intervened. "Sir, they're not enemies. They're trying to help us." Morrison shouted angrily, "I can't listen to this nonsense. We're going in." Just then, a strange light began to emerge from the cave. A red, bright light. A light that the soldiers could see even without their goggles. One of the soldiers asked in fear, "What's that?" The light grew stronger. Then a shape appeared at the entrance of the cave. One of the beings had become visible to the naked eye. The soldiers' weapons began to tremble. This was something they had never seen before. The being slowly approached Morrison. It was tall, elegant, but powerful. Its eyes were deep and blue. Morrison aimed his weapon. "Stop! Don't come any closer!" But the entity didn't stop. It began to speak in his mind. This time, only Morrison could hear it. "Don't be afraid. We bring peace." Morrison's eyes widened. How is this happening? It's speaking in my head." Ethan didn't miss the opportunity and replied, "That's why I'm telling you, sir. They're special beings. They can communicate with us." The entity approached Morrison and extended its hand toward him. It touched Morrison's gun. The gun glowed with light and disappeared. Morrison, stunned, said, "My gun. Where is it?" "The gun is gone. Peace is necessary." The other soldiers panicked and retreated. None of them had ever seen anything like this. Logan emerged from the cave. "Morrison, they're not enemies. They can show you the truth." Morrison scratched his head. "Logan, you're different. Even your eyes have changed." "Because I saw the truth, sir. This war and all other wars are meaningless. They are trying to stop it." The entity began showing Morrison images in his mind. Future wars, destruction, death. Morrison fell to his knees. Is this real?" "It's real. If it doesn't change." The entity looked sad. Ethan approached Morrison. "Sir, give them a chance. Listen to them. Maybe this is the way to save the world." Morrison raised his head. His eyes were filled with fear and confusion. As Morrison stood up, there was a profound change in his face. The mental connection he had established with the entity had deeply affected him. The other soldiers were still in shock, unsure of what to do. Morrison said in a trembling voice, "Soldiers, lower your weapons. These entities are truly different." One of the sergeants objected. "But, sir, procedures. Forget the procedures." Morrison's voice grew stronger. "This situation is not covered by any procedures. I will take responsibility." The entity stood calmly at the entrance of the cave. It seemed peaceful, not threatening, to the other soldiers as well. Ethan seized the opportunity. "Sir, they want to talk to you. They can give you more detailed information." Morrison hesitated. "But how? I didn't use the goggles." Logan stepped forward. "You don't need the goggles. They can appear in their true size. They can establish a mental connection." More beings began emerging from the cave. All appeared calm and peaceful. Under the soldiers' fearful stares, they silently formed a line. Jackson approached Morrison. "Sir, I spoke with them. They are truly from the future, and they are genuinely trying to save the world." Morrison replied, "That's scientifically impossible, Jackson." The elderly being stepped forward. He addressed everyone in their minds. "Science, as you know it, is limited. The universe is far more complex." Morrison turned his head. You really are from the future?" "Yes, from the year you are living in, 200 years from now. In those years, the world was nearly destroyed." Caleb asked anxiously. "Almost destroyed? What happened?" The entity showed them horrific images in their minds: nuclear wars, environmental disasters, and the deaths of billions of people. The world was barren and uninhabitable. Miles trembled as he asked, "How did you survive?" "We evolved into energy beings. But if the past changes, maybe this future won't happen." Morrison fell into deep thought. "So, you came here to change that terrifying future?" "Yes. The first beginning was here. Vietnam. If this war doesn't stop, bigger wars will come. Can we really change the future?" "Do you think Morrison will make the right decision? Share your thoughts in the comments." Ethan noticed Morrison's indecision. "Sir, they can show us proof. We can watch the future visions in more detail." Morrison shook his head. "All right, but not here. We need to return to base and report the situation." The entity spoke anxiously. "The higher-ups won't believe. They'll try to use us as weapons." Logan interrupted. "Sir, that's why this had to stay secret from the start." Morrison turned to his soldiers. "What you've seen and heard in this operation is top secret. You won't say a word to anyone." The soldiers nodded, but their eyes still betrayed their shock. Dr. Coleman arrived with the medical team. "Morrison, what's happening here? Why aren't the radios working?" Morrison had thought seeing Dr. Coleman would ease his tension. However, he had to explain. "Doctor, we've encountered an extremely unusual situation. These entities, they're all real." Dr. Coleman's eyes widened when he saw the entities. How is this possible?" The elderly entity addressed Dr. Coleman's mind as well. "Doctor, we can provide a scientific explanation, but time is short." Dr. Coleman stepped back in shock. "He's speaking in my head. Is this telepathy?" "It's not telepathy. Quantum consciousness connection." Miles turned to Morrison. "Sir, we have to decide. Either we cooperate with them or what, Miles? Or we'll see them as enemies. That could be a huge mistake." Morrison thought for a long time. Then he spoke decisively. "We will cooperate with them, but we must be very careful and very secretive." Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. The right decision had been made. Logan approached Morrison. "Sir, I want to stay with them. I want to learn more. Logan, this is too risky. Your family and friends. I want to protect my family too. And the only way to do that is to learn from these beings. Morrison shook his head. I understand, Logan, but you will stay in regular contact with us. As the sun began to set, an extraordinary scene unfolded around the cave. American soldiers and beings from the future stood side by side in peace for the first time in history. Everyone felt the historical significance of this moment. The elderly being made one final mental connection with everyone. This was the beginning, but the hardest part is yet to come. Morrison asked anxiously, "What do you mean?" "The higher-ups. When they find out, they will try to turn us into weapons. You must be prepared for this." Dr. Coleman was taking notes. "How will we prove this information? No one will believe us." Ethan suggested an idea. "Maybe we don't need them to believe us. Maybe all we need to do is spread the message of peace to the world." Jackson nodded. "Ethan is right. If the true purpose of these beings is to bring peace, then we can spread that message." The entity seemed pleased. Wise, thought, direct, show, dangerous. But message can be spread. Caleb asked curiously, "But how will we explain this to the other soldiers? How will we convince them that the war is meaningless?" Logan stepped forward. "I think I can handle that. While I'm with them, I'll learn more. Then I'll give you all the details." Miles was worried. "Logan, this is a huge responsibility. What if we fail?" The old entity spoke in their minds. "Failure is unacceptable. The future is in your hands." Morrison spoke decisively. "Then let's make our plan. This operation will be recorded as a failed rescue mission. Logan will be marked as missing." Dr. Coleman objected. "What about his family? His friends? How will we tell them?" Logan replied sadly but firmly, "I will make the sacrifice. If we want to save the world, we must be willing to make personal sacrifices." Ethan squeezed Logan's hand. "Friend, you're becoming a true hero." "No, Ethan. We're all heroes. You, Jackson, Caleb, Miles. All of you will spread this message." Jackson asked anxiously, "But what if they catch us? What if someone finds out the truth?" The entity spoke in a reassuring tone. "We will protect you. When necessary, we will help. Will this plan work? Can they really change the world? What would you do in this situation? Share your final thoughts in the comments." Dr. Coleman spoke as he gathered the experimental equipment. "This project and what we've experienced will completely change science. But it will happen slowly, so we must implement it very carefully." Morrison gave his final instructions. "Everyone will begin spreading the message of peace in their respective areas, but be very careful, very natural. No one should suspect anything." Caleb was determined. "I'll talk to the other sergeants. I'll explain the futility of war." Miles joined in. "I'll talk to my pilot friends. Maybe we can pressure them to negotiate peace." Ethan looked at Jackson. "We'll start with our own team." The old entity delivered its final message. "Remember, this isn't just for Vietnam. It's for the entire world. Peace will spread like a virus." Logan's eyes welled up as he bid farewell to his friends. "I trust you all. This isn't just goodbye. It's a new beginning." Morrison looked at the beings one last time. "You won't break this secret agreement, will you? Our only purpose is peace. The agreement is sacred to us." As the group left the cave, Logan turned back and waved. His friends would see him for the last time. But at the same time, they were witnessing the beginning of a mission that would change the fate of the world. As they boarded the helicopter, everyone had the same thought. Their lives would never be the same again. Ethan looked back at the cave one last time. The red light was still glowing, and that light had become a beacon of hope. Dr. Coleman closed his notes and murmured, "What we've experienced today might be the most important day in history." Morrison shook his head. Either the most important day or the most dangerous. We'll see. 6 months had passed since those events. Spring had come to Vietnam in 1968, and unexpected changes were beginning to take place. Ethan, Jackson, Caleb, and Miles were quietly but resolutely continuing the mission they had undertaken that night. Ethan had started talking frequently with his helicopter crew about peace. "This war is going on too long," he began to say. "Perhaps diplomacy is a better solution." At first, met with skepticism, these words gradually spread from ear to ear. Jackson was sending similar messages to his pilot friends. "Don't you want to go home?" he would ask. "Don't you miss your families? When will this war end?" These questions caused the other pilots to think as well. Caleb took a different approach with the soldiers. Instead of telling war stories, he talked about plans to return home. The question, "What will you do when the war is over?" inspired the young men to dream of a hopeful future. Miles, meanwhile, focused on talking to higher-ranking officers. He began saying, "The cost of these operations is too high. Perhaps peace talks would be more economical." Financial concerns were beginning to weigh on the commanders. Dr. Coleman emphasized in his medical reports that the effects of war trauma were increasing and spoke of the need for peace for the psychological health of the soldiers. This scientific approach was influencing the medical staff. Morrison, meanwhile, had taken on the most challenging task. In meetings with higher-ups, he presented reports stating, "Troop morale is declining," and hinted that peace talks could have a positive impact on morale. Could this strategy really work? Are big changes possible with such small steps? What approach would you take? Share your final thoughts. Logan was sending regular messages. The time he spent with the beings had taught him a lot. His reports included different peace strategies, methods of persuasion, and predictions for the future. This information was guiding the group's work. The most surprising development was that similar reports were starting to come in from other bases. It was as if the idea of peace was spreading like a virus. Soldiers were beginning to discuss the meaninglessness of war among themselves. Ethan wrote the following on the last page of his diary. 6 months ago, when we first encountered the red glasses, we thought we would only see our enemies. But in reality, we saw the future. And that future gave us hope. Jackson wrote in a letter home, "Dear Mom, this war will end soon. I can feel it. People are changing, and everyone wants peace. I can't wait to come home." Caleb wrote to his wife, "Dear, I won't tell our children war stories. I'll tell them stories of peace, because the future will be filled with peace." Miles wrote in a letter to his brother, "My friend, this world is changing. Humanity is becoming smarter. Perhaps our generation will be the last generation of warriors." Dr. Coleman wrote in an article submitted to a scientific journal, "Human psychology is evolving toward peace. War is no longer a sustainable option." Morrison noted in his final report, "Soldiers' motivation is higher in peace-oriented missions. This factor should be taken into account for future operations." Those red glasses were now safely stored away, but the door they had opened remained open. The message of peace continued to spread. Every night, Ethan, Jackson, Caleb, and Miles looked up at the sky and thought of Logan and those beings. They knew this was only the beginning. The future now looked more hopeful. The horrific scenes they had seen in the red spectrum were slowly beginning to change. And in the pages of history, the mysterious peace movement that began in Vietnam in the spring of 1968 would be recorded as a turning point that changed the course of world history. Logan's final message was, "Friends, you did it. The beings are very pleased that the future has changed. The world is now safe, and I will soon be with you. But this time, in a time of peace."